Welcome to Hatman Strikes Back Daily Boxing News. Now, myself and some other boxing fans have been wondering what on earth has happened to Filip Hrgovic. Where is he? This guy has disappeared since his loss to Daniel Dubois last summer. He's done no interviews that I'm aware of. I don't recall seeing him at any of the major boxing events. It's like he's gone into hiding. Now, there's a YouTube channel called True School Sports who had some type of DM correspondence with him, which he posted in this video here. He asked Hrgovic what's going on with his career. Is he going to come back? And as you can see, his response was, "Hey man, thanks for the message. I will come back, working on it. Other than that, everything is going great. Hope so you are doing good. Say hi to your dad. Merry Christmas." All right, so this was obviously several weeks ago. I don't know whether he's having any kind of managerial issues, promotional issues, because when fighters are inactive like this, and sometimes when they're silent like this, that can often be the cause. There's also the possibility of personal issues. Filip Hrgovic a couple of years ago lost his father. Is that still affecting him? I don't know. But there's also the possibility here that Hrgovic has simply been knocked for six mentally by Daniel Dubois, because he was so sure that he was not only going to go in there and beat Dubois, but do it easily. He'd apparently bashed Dubois up in sparring back in the days, and Hrgovic is a very confident character, or at least was a very confident alpha type of character. And so for a guy like him, as supremely confident as he was, to not only lose to Daniel Dubois, but to get stopped, it may have turned his world upside down in a bad way. It's like all of a sudden, he's not the guy that he thought he was for all these years. It can be a difficult thing for a fighter to come to terms with. Now, somebody in my Element group posted a link to this Johnny Fisher interview, which he did actually about 3 months ago. So this would have been before the Dave Allen fight. And in this interview on the Stomping Ground YouTube channel, Johnny Fisher revealed information about his experiences sparring Filip Hrgovic when Hrgovic was preparing for that Daniel Dubois fight. And first of all, he said it was the most difficult sparring experience he's ever had. Bear in mind, he's also sparred Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, Joe Joyce, and a host of other notable heavyweights. He said Hrgovic gave him the toughest time out of all of them. He also sparred Dubois in the past, Johnny Fisher. But he said Hrgovic gave him more problems than any of the others. He said Hrgovic was unbelievably sharp. He was accurate. He was throwing 4-5 punch combinations and barely missing. And Johnny said that it was very, very tough. And he was wondering, after the first couple times sparring, how he was going to get through several weeks of this. But he also said that Hrgovic, in his opinion, was training way too hard. He said that he and his boxing coach, or maybe it was his S&C coach, I forget which, were talking to each other saying, yeah, Hrgovic is going way too hard in training right now. Even on his days off, apparently he was doing 8-mile runs and whatnot. And so the inference that Johnny Fisher makes is that Hrgovic basically overtrained, left the best of himself in the gym, and that maybe contributed to his loss to Daniel Dubois. Now, while I don't discount that as a possibility, I'm not 100% sold on it. Now, don't get me wrong, overtraining is a very real thing. It's something that I experienced during my amateur career. There were times when I overtrained. You can absolutely burn yourself out in training. And obviously some people have got a higher tolerance for intense and prolonged periods of training than others do. But I certainly burned myself out several times, so I know it's a real thing. But in this particular case with Filip Hrgovic in the Dubois fight, the reason I'm not 100% sold on the idea is because Hrgovic did a terrible job of pacing himself. He came out throwing a ridiculous amount of punches, particularly power shots, for a man of his size in the early going against Dubois. He was so convinced that he was going to take Dubois out early, and he was so excited by his initial success, and he had a lot of success in those early rounds against Dubois, that as far as I can see, he just punched himself out. You know, there is an art in boxing to go in 12 rounds, learning how to manage your gas tank, how to pace yourself. But this is something that Filip Hrgovic hasn't yet learned. Because it wasn't only in the Dubois fight that this happened, but actually when he fought Dempsey McKean, he did something similar. If you go back and watch the McKean fight, he was throwing an awful lot of shots early on, Hrgovic. But he didn't manage to get McKean out of there. He punched himself out, which then allowed McKean to get himself back into the fight. Now, obviously, Hrgovic eventually got some kind of second wind and stopped McKean in the final round. But as I say, not before punching himself out first. So personally, I think that if Hrgovic did overtrain, a bigger issue for him in the Dubois fight, in my view, in my estimation, was punching himself out early. He needs to learn to pace himself better. And that can take a mental adjustment, right? It's not just telling a fighter, yeah, pace yourself better. If a guy is as alpha as Filip Hrgovic, and he really believes that nobody can stand in front of him, and he believes in his power. He also believes in his chin, right? He's going to fight with that kind of reckless abandon. But now that he's been beaten by Daniel Dubois, maybe that's the reality check that he needs. Maybe that'll be enough for him to make that adjustment and box more sensibly from here on in. And I hope so, because I do think that Filip Hrgovic is a talented heavyweight. I think a lot of the criticism he's received since that Dubois fight has been way overboard, especially in light of how easily Daniel Dubois disposed of Anthony Joshua. In retrospect, Hrgovic's performance was actually pretty good compared to AJ's performance, right? And it's not just the fact that Hrgovic has obviously got a much better chin than Anthony Joshua, but the thing that surprised me, again, looking back in retrospect at both those fights, is the fact that Hrgovic has a more sophisticated offense than AJ does. I mentioned this before, but if you go back and watch that Dubois-Hrgovic fight, you'll see that in the first round, Hrgovic is throwing multiple different types of right hands in order to circumvent, to get around Daniel Dubois' defensive construct. He adjusts the trajectory of his right hands multiple times in the first couple of rounds. That's why he was able to land so easily. Go watch it back. When Dubois comes out, he's got his left hand up to block a straight right hand. So Hrgovic starts curving the right hand over the top of Dubois' glove and punching down in a chopping motion. It's a very unusual looking right hand that Hrgovic keeps throwing, but it's landing. And when Dubois then raises his hand up further to block the trajectory of that chopping shot, Hrgovic starts throwing uppercuts. And then later he starts throwing the right hand straight, then curving it round the guard. He's throwing the right hand in a number of different ways. He's adjusting on the fly very quickly and having success. And because he's got such a great chin, Hrgovic, he wasn't at all afraid of standing in the pocket with Dubois and trading off. See, that was the major difference between he and AJ's performances. AJ was trying to throw big shots from long range, but whenever Dubois got close, AJ was just trying to grab him. Whereas Hrgovic was like, nah, let's slug it out. That's what he was like in the first few rounds anyway when he was fresh. He wasn't trying to hold. He was like, no, let's go. Let's trade off. Anyway, in summary, whatever the reasons for Hrgovic's loss to Daniel Dubois, maybe Dubois is just a better fighter. Maybe Dubois just got his number. Whatever the reasons, and whatever the reasons for Hrgovic's absence, I hope he comes back. If he can get his mind right, I think he has a lot to offer. He's still only 32 years of age, which is not ancient for a heavyweight. He's only had 18 fights, just that one defeat. He's 6'6". He's had a long enough rest now. It's been over 6 months, I think 7 months at this point. It's time to schedule a fight and get back in the mix. I would hate to see this guy waste his talent. I'm not saying he's going to be the next dominant heavyweight. I'm just saying that he's a talented fighter and a useful addition to the current heavyweight mix. And there are many fights that I'd like to see him involved in, including maybe a Dubois rematch at some point. If he can get himself back on the horse, get some wins under his belt again, beat some credible names, then you never know. Maybe they meet again. Anyway, those are just my thoughts. Leave yours in the comment section below. Don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I'll catch you on the next one. Are you surrounded by mindless bots in human form who adhere to the norm and blindly conform? Who swallow all the mainstream BS and actually ridicule you for questioning things? Do you wish you had more free-thinking individuals in your life to network and converse with? Well, look no further. We're right here. Come and join the Brotherhood of Reason on Patreon. You'll gain access to my weekly topical content where we take deep dives on an endless variety of subjects, as well as my vast back catalogue of podcasts, videos, interviews, movie decodings, and my Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You'll also get to talk and network with myself and hundreds of other people in our members chat. You can enjoy all this via the Patreon app or on desktop and download all my podcasts in high-quality MP3. There's no contract, no commitment. You can cancel at any time, just like Netflix, but it's a hell of a lot cheaper. Just download the app from the Play Store or the App Store, or simply visit patreon.com on a web browser. Then head on over to my page and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. All the links are in the description box below. And just a quick money-saving tip for Apple users. If you purchase your Patreon subscription on the desktop site or on Android, then you'll avoid the ridiculous 30% fee that Apple charges for purchases made on the iOS app. So if you're on iPhone or iPad, save yourself some money by buying your subscription on the actual Patreon website or on Android, because it's a lot cheaper. Once you've made that initial purchase, you can then use the Patreon app on your iPhone or iPad thereafter to access and enjoy your content as normal.